2002SuperVision presents Digital Nitrate, a video podcast with Chandler and Joel. Hey, Joel.
Hey, Chandler. I'm back from the garage and they managed to fix our Honda Civic. How about we take it on a nice little drive?
Oh, I'm thinking we take it on a road trip. Rei Hayakawa finds herself alienated in a convenience store, only to end up in a 4-day odyssey of sex, puke, and trucking. Now Amori plays our freewheeling trucker Takatoshi Okabe, who brings Rei into his truck as they explore the Japanese highway system and each other's bodies. As the miles rack up, Rei comes to better understand herself through Takatoshi, but every road comes to an end. So what did you think, Joel?
I mean, it's a very depressing film, but I don't think that is bad for it. I think it's very, like, when I first watched this, I was perusing film posters. That's how I find a lot of things.
Of course.
The poster itself is very sort of dimly lit. It's got that sort of early 2000s depression aesthetic that,
Definitely. Very provocative.
I hear you typing. It's a little bit distracting. It's like, I've seen a lot of photography of, like, Britain in that age, which was very, like, industrialized and everything was very concrete. And the film itself does kind of have that depressing tone over it. It wants to be at least a little bit uplifting by the end, but I don't know if it quite gets there.
Visually speaking, this film is very bleak. I mean, it's shot mostly on roads, around roads, in cities. The coloring is always very dim, a lot of like blues, not a lot of bright moments in this film. I would say definitely the film is not the happiest film. I think it works towards that end because this isn't a film that suggests there is a magical way out of our problems.
It feels very magical, I think, though. Especially the way it positions truckers.
Definitely, truckers are magical.
I think of, like, Tampopo, with, like, truckers of the modern cowboy. It's very, this would make a great double feature with Tampopo, actually.
While the truckers themselves, or these figures themselves, are magical, they are not, you could almost throw it back to sort of like a white knight trope in a fantasy novel, right? Like they maybe come in and appear, for to use something like Tampopo, he comes in and he reluctantly helps Tampopo build up her ramen shop. In the end, he leaves though, because, it's sort of the right thing to do. And Tampopo has built herself up enough where she can independently support herself, I believe the same happens very much in this film where Rei, I think, maybe wants, the moment with Takatoshi to live on forever, but it's best that in the end, spoiler alert.
Yeah, we're going to be saying spoilers for all of these films, so...
yeah, watch the films.
Go watch them, definitely.
Yeah, the spoilers aren't that bad. In the end, they part ways. I think that is more compelling. I have personally sort of learned from these films what it's like to have these kind of fleeting experiences with other people. And I think that these movies, Tampopo and Vibrator, sort of help you appreciate those temporary relationships that you find, especially in your adult life.
This is going to sound like a criticism, but I think the film wants me to think that the ending is happy, but I really just do not get that from the ending at all. Not even just in the sense that he leaves, because that kind of had to happen. It was the inevitable end place of the film, was they go their separate ways and they've changed each other. But just the way it's framed, she, like, goes back to a regular life. maybe I can just associate with the fact of feeling stuck somewhere you don't want to be, because I'm stuck in the worst island on the planet.
Yeah, there is sort of a theme of travel as therapy, travel as a way to sort of break out of a rut. Race definitely learns a lot on her journey. It is sort of, it's almost like a hero's journey in a way, you know, leaving her familiar world and gaining knowledge from her companion. And they encounter sort of perils along the way, sort of obstacles. Nothing like major, mostly just you know, the one that comes to mind is them having to divert their path because their cargo is overweight, and they had to avoid a police check for weight.
I don't know whether the extended time they have to spend in the truck obviously then leads to her having a lot more time with her thoughts, because it's very much her talking to him is what is distracting her from her inner monologue, which as soon as she gets into the truck at the beginning, the inner monologue she's had goes quiet, and like it stays quiet throughout the film, which is a nice little touch.
Yeah, a lot of this film is dialogue.
It is, yeah. You can tell it's adapted from a book.
Definitely. You know, a lot of the perils, I guess you could say, maybe to pull it back to that, is that they aren't like physical perils, but rather the perils of, you know, finding yourself, coming to terms with yourself, and also learning about another person. In this film, you know, Rei really wants to find out a lot about Takatoshi, but Takatoshi's a little more reserved, you know, doesn't seem to be saying the whole story.
Yeah, well, he's telling lies about himself, and he
lies about himself, right?
His fake marriage and his fake daughter and his fake stalker especially.
Yeah, exactly. And so the perils become the perils in relationships. I think especially in a more modern context, you know, Vibrator 2003, so not quite up to our standards of modern relationships, but
technically ancient at this point.
Practically ancient. But technically at the time we started to get these ideas of, you know, we get a lot of instances of people feeling very reserved about telling their stories, letting people into their lives. And a lot of this film is sort of growing due to the knowledge that we gain from other people, or even just the time that we spend with other people.
It's definitely a shockingly erotic movie, I would say. There are a lot of back of the truck sex scenes, which is surprisingly intimate because of just how close the camera has to be. There's no room in the truck to back up the camera at all.
Definitely. I'm surprised we got this far without mentioning that. That's definitely the crux. That's sort of the crux of this whole thing, is the sexual relationship between the two leads.
I mean, the film's called Vibrator.
Right.
It might not be very specifically about vibrators, but it comes to mind.
Definitely the vibrations between the two of them.
The vibrations of the truck on the road.
Yeah, there's something sexual about.
And the vibrations of the heart.
Damn. It's very real and raw relationship that they share, isn't it? That very open. And yes, this is a film that is not embarrassed about its sexuality, but it's also not one that is, you know, vulgar.
Yeah, it's not looking for that hardcore jerk-off audience at
Yeah.
all. It's very sort of sensual. It's
yeah.
It just also happens to be named Vibrator.
Yeah, this film is definitely for the mental masturbators.
It really, like, they make trucking seem like such a sexy profession.
Right.
And the way that Naomori, the way he looks and the way he plays it.
Oh, yeah.
I only know him from, like, Ichi the Killer, and it's insane the difference between him in that film and him in this film. It's like unapproachable nerd versus hottest man alive. It's such a wide difference between those two films.
Definitely, it plays very interesting characters. Also, His character in R100, which also stars Shinobu Terajima, he's this super fucking like tied down, geeky businessman who just so happens to enjoy sadomasochism.
It's like the perfect mix between his characters in Itchy and in Vibrator, I guess.
Yeah, this is kind of the love child of the two.
And of course, on the subject of actors, we get for maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes, we get Tomorowo Taguchi, which is very fun for Shinya Tsukamoto fans. I love that guy, but I really don't think he's been in that much other than Tetsuo. That's his like only real leading role, I think.
Yeah, very unfortunate. We need to see him. We need to give this guy a Brendan Fraser-esque revival.
I always wonder if he is popular in Japan and if these are cameo appearances, or if he's only really popular like just between the two of us, frankly, because we both fucking love Tetsuo. So
yeah,
I wonder how popular he actually is.
Who knows?
I have in my notes, I called this the evil Tampopo.
It kind of is like the it is like an anti-Tampopo, because in Tampopo the trucker leaves his truck and enters Tampopo's world, but in this the Tampopo character enters the trucker and follows the trucker, right? So I think evil is a very very good way to look at it. And obviously just, you know, Juzo Itami is a for his time a pretty provocative filmmaker, and has made some pretty gnarly things, but you know, this certainly makes any Juzo Itami film blush in comparison.
But it's raw depiction of fingering a woman in the back of a truck.
Definitely don't see that.
No, you don't at all.
Don't see that enough in today's pictures.
I wanted to ask you, do you think this was shot on video? It's a genuine question, because I cannot for the life of me work out whether this was shot on video or not. If it was, like, God bless, I've seen some crap that's shot on video. I've seen cannibal cookout, violent shit, prehistoric bimbos. It's really refreshing to have a well thought out film shot on video. I want to see that more, but then again, I do love just some of the crap that's put out on videotape.
Definitely want to see more shot on video that's like, you know, has effort in it. But I could see this being shot on film, sort of definitely in the right time frame, 2003.
I mean, maybe it's just like 16 millimeter, because I know that's I've been confused before, the 16 millimeter looking like videotape.
Yeah, but if anything, it has, even if it is shot on film, it has a very much a video feel, right? A video aesthetic, a video kind of sensibility, you know?
It feels like it could be documentary-esque, honestly. It's so like, there's a helicopter shot in it once that's really nice, and there's a few like artistic shots in it, but a lot of it is very just matter of fact, cameras facing the characters and they're talking. It's
you know, very simple. No shots that are gonna make it in any, you know, cinematography compilations.
It's not looking for the wow factor.
Yeah, but they feel beautiful, and they feel very comforting, very comfortable, very warm, very real. Like, you know, going back to that dialogue bit, it's just very raw and humanist. I might even go so far as to throw that fancy thing out there.
Throwing out the fancy terms, making us look like real critics.
Yeah, we gotta try to.
We need the cred, you know, or else they're never gonna hire us to film the BBC film review at 6 a.m. every morning.
We gotta get that radio slot one way or another.
Can you imagine if they hired us? What a waste of money.
I hope they don't.
I hope they do.
That was Vibrator. You can find it on YouTube, probably. Very hard film to find, but you can find it. And Joel, final verdict. What do you think? Yes or no?
Definitely yes. I I think it's got a very specific audience to it. I think if you don't like slow, depressing truck rides, then it's not for you. But definitely try it if you can, because it is an interesting film for its time.
I'm giving this a very resounding yes. This is very hardcore Chandler core cinema. And if you yourself are into slow trucking montages, then you can email me and we can talk.
This film is very much just, it'll be a scene of Naomori explaining how a truck works, a scene of something depressing, and then a trucking montage, so it's perfect for you. God bless.
Yeah, and a little sex too, for all the freaks out there.
Me. That part's for me.
So, we recorded the Vibrator section about 2 weeks ago, and in the time between that and this section here, the Queen has died, which I can only believe is because of this podcast.
Almost definitely because of this podcast.
And if not this podcast, definitely this next film called 19, directed by Kazushi Watanabe. And I believe we have a little bit of a synopsis duel here, Joel, is that right?
Yes, we both wrote synopses because we didn't plan that far ahead.
No, and there's also a little bit of inter-office rivalry going on. So, do you ever just want to get away? Well, if you're Usami, you have no choice. While out on a scooter ride, our precocious protagonist is kidnapped by a gang of 3 men. Yokohama, played by Kazushi Watanabe, leads the posse, with the help of Happy and some guy with cool shades. I don't know his name. What starts out as a panic-filled excursion soon turns into a Stockholm Syndrome-fueled joyride. But can this budding friendship last?
In this prequel to Visitor Q, 3 thugs in their grandmother's car kidnap a college student off the side of the road. What precedes is 80 minutes of seedy criminal activity, including a trip to the antique store and a day at the zoo. Will the initially reluctant Usami learn what guy time is all about? Maybe. So Chandler, 19.
Yes, 19.
Any big thoughts?
My big thought is that I'm lonely. I'm so lonely. And so is our protagonist here. He doesn't really realize this at first, being, kidnapped and all. But it is beautiful to see the friendship bloom in this film.
It's a very interesting friendship because, I guess, I'm going to say a blanket statement that we all want someone else to come and make us be their friend, because that takes out a lot of the effort. But it would make it a lot easier if someone else would just decide that you're friends with them now, and they ended up being shockingly cool people.
And you know what? In a way, it's not dissimilar to how we do become friends. It is almost like, because you don't just walk up to somebody and probe them and be like, cool, we're friends now. There is sort of always an instant where you're sort of kidnapped by them. You're put into these, it's these strange situations that we don't have normally in normal circumstances in daily life that make us friends.
Well, that's perfect for us, because obviously our freak chance encounter was a podcast that
that's right.
Did not succeed, and you kidnapped me to come and talk about a movie. And
I did. I put a sack over your head and said it's gonna be nice and easy. We're just gonna talk about a movie you like, and then we'll see if I let you go.
I was screaming up until you said only yesterday, and then I was happy. But you had a much nicer car than the people in this film.
The grandma car is really nice though. The lace
doilies
on the doilies. It really, yeah.
It's lovely. We don't get it for the whole film, sadly, because they keep switching cars. I think it's the perfect choice, both in terms of the fact that obviously this film's budget is minuscule. I don't know an exact number, but you can just tell.
It's somewhere around 0 yen.
I mean, I've heard stories that they were literally the director Watanabe was like literally stealing expired film from garbage cans and using that in the camera so that they could just keep the budget as low as possible. And I think that that's like commendable filmmaking, just doing whatever you can to get the film done. I love that every time.
Totally. Big ups to the filmmakers, everybody in this film, everything that was done here. This was definitely a case of somebody giving everything to make a movie, right? This isn't a big studio production, not even a small studio production. This is somebody with zero resources making a film, and that's very difficult. Yeah, this is 2000. Like, movie industry's on the decline. These are, Watanabe is a outside filmmaker, but he wants to make films. And 19 is just a great example of, somebody beating the odds to make something that is, flawed. I'm sure we could maybe in the next part say some negatives, or maybe not, because we're nice.
I don't have much bad to say about the film, to be honest. Like,
it is, yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, it is...
Cheapness is subjective, really.
Yeah, because it really comes down to that, like, everything is in context of that budget. So it's like, sure, some shots are a little, funky and could have used a reshoot, or, the acting isn't top notch, but, they did it.
I usually use this as an insult when I say it looks and feels like a student film. Like, I could 100% imagine being at a university screening and seeing 19. But
completely.
I think
yeah.
there's quite a major difference in the way that Kazushi Watanabe has written this. It feels a lot more mature than student films usually do. Because I think...
Yeah.
This was a short. I wonder if his short was a student film and then he adapted it to feature length when he got older and a little bit more wiser.
Yeah, that'd be definitely some interesting trivia to have. Of course, this film is ridiculously obscure.
It would be very safe to call this underground film, especially over here in the West. Like, I don't know anyone else who's seen it. I know a lot of people who love Japanese cinema, and no one else has seen it.
Yeah, it really is just really on the low. But I do recommend everybody see this. It's great. You can find it on YouTube.
It's on YouTube now. Yeah.
So give it a look. Give it a watch. It's just fun, In a world where film is either, a profit-driven Wonderland action theme park ride, where the fun is you buying into the mythos of superheroes, either like a theme park ride or like a really watered-down comedy. Like, this is just fun. It's just fun. Films are fun, god damn it.
They really should be more fun. I'm so fucking tired of films.
Period and cut.
I'm just so fucking tired of them. This would be actually like a great film for someone who's just started making films, so that you get to see just how much you can get away with. Like,
oh, sure, yeah.
Again, small budget. A lot of it is just people talking to each other. If you put the work into writing, like, lovable dialogue, you can get away with just long shots of people talking to each other on the beach or at the park or outside of a store. You can get away with it, and you should try to, and you might fail. You probably will fail, but just remake it later in life and it might be better.
Yeah. And we're still going back to this film despite it having those sort of constraints, and we loved it, Everybody thinks that their first film's going to be Citizen Kane, and I mean, you just can't build a building without your foundation first.
You've got to put the work in to learn the rules, and then you will be able to execute perfect rule breaking later in life. I really wonder if Takashi Miike has seen 19, and if that's why Kazushi Watanabe was cast in Visitor Q.
Yeah, I'm sure that Miike is right down there rubbing shoulders with the underbelly of the Japanese film world. He's not hanging out at, Shojiku Studios or any of the big guys, and he's not hanging out at Toho with all those big stars.
I hope that for him, because I have a lot of respect for Miike, and I think it's because he's sort of down to earth, not afraid to do gross, weird films that should definitely be appreciated as they are, without this lens of Visitor Q, what a weird film. You can still enjoy Visitor Q. I don't know if I do, but
it's a hard film to quote unquote enjoy.
We watched it together, didn't we? I showed it to you. What a mistake.
Yeah, it's just mean. It's just mean.
I just do these things just to see how far I can push you.
Oh yeah, very, very evocative. I think last thing I want to bring up is, and especially when you brought up the student film aspect of it, the low budget sort of aspect, very similar to Clerks. Again, another great film to watch. Have your opinions on Kevin Smith.
I have my opinions on Kevin Smith, and the entirety of my opinion is the Clip Brown Taint tweet.
I love that tweet so much. But Clerks is very much on a very similar, platform as 19.
They both look like dog shit, but you don't count it against them.
They both look terrible. It's just people talking, hanging out at stores.
Anyone can make a movie, clearly.
Exactly.
So go ahead and make a movie. Do whatever you want to.
Whether you're Kevin Smith or Kazushi Watanabe with your grandma's car, that's all it takes.
And you too can host your own Batman podcast years after your first very low budget movie.
So Joel, would you give this film a big up or a big down?
I would give this a big up. I would say you might get bored. I hope you wouldn't, but you might. But I think if you have ever made a student film, you will understand this film quite a lot from a technical standpoint.
Big up, and I'm gonna give it a big up too. It's fresh, it's alive, and even though it does have that mumblecore, slow, boring sort of aspects to it, it's just very nice to see in a sea of films that, despite having a better budget, better, privileges, everything like that, better opportunities, fall short of even 19. So check it out.
I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead.
Mad Max Fury Road, the fourth movie set in George Miller's post-apocalypse where gasoline is hard to get and bold white men keep falling for the same thing. This time, Max is driving a truck and is in a fight with gay leather daddy Jason Voorhees. Oh, no, that's the Road Warrior. Is Fury Road the soft reboot of the Road Warrior? Who knows? At least it changed the landscape of action movies forever. Or was that John Wick? Never mind. So Chandler, are you ready to defend your position on Mad Max Fury Road? Because, believe it or not, it is controversial.
You're really putting me on the back foot here with the fans.
I am, I really am.
You didn't let me sink into it. You're just gonna come out here and expose me like that, aren't you?
This is the fight of the century. Mad Max Fury Road hater versus Mad Max Fury Road. I just like it. I just think it's a good film.
Hate is a strong word. It's a strong word for my feelings. I don't like it, but I wouldn't say I hate it. But let's just get into it and see how the chips fall. Let's start with what we like. And how about you start with what you like?
Oh, I like the whole thing, babe. But when I think Mad Max Fury Road, I think I think about the color palette for one. That film is gorgeous to look at. It is so yellow, which isn't usually a compliment, but for Mad Max it really is.
Visually, I will say that there were a lot of cool choices. You know, George Miller, you can't deny that he is somebody who uses film. Okay, he uses color, he uses light. He's going to use film, very similar to Baz Luhrmann.
I guess very similar to Baz Luhrmann in this one instance.
Well, you haven't seen 3,000 Years of Longing yet.
Oh shit!
Looks like I'm the bigger George Miller fan.
You would be.
But look, I much prefer Mad Max 1979. I know that you're not as hot on the original one.
I'm not. I think it's a mess. I think that the original Mad Max is a good start, but it's not a good film.
It's very much like 19 in that way.
I don't agree. I think 19 is a good film.
Mad Max is definitely a lot more poetic, slow, quiet. You know, obviously there are the big action stunt pieces, explosions, all that. But it is by and far, you know, a narrative interior film, I would say. Compare that with Fury Road, which does have, you know, the sort of Mad Max structural aspects. There is sort of that, you know, looking in on oneself inside this apocalypse setting, how that changes humanity, changes ourselves, sort of reveals things about ourselves. But look, it's just how it's done for me. You like the big explosions, stuff like that. I see it, and a lot of it is just...
I'm not gonna say I don't like big explosions, who doesn't? But it's not about the explosions. It's the way it's edited, the way that it manages to track... Because cars are notoriously fast, right? You've been in a car, you know.
They are supposed to be fast, yes.
They're notoriously fast. So you put cars in an action scene, it is very easy to lose track of where a car is as opposed to a person. The way that this film is like shot and edited and planned out, these cars are always on screen, and if they're not, you know where they are, you know exactly when they're gonna come back. You never once during the film feel like it is just a mush of like colors. I'm thinking like, you remember Avengers Endgame, the end of that film, which is a complete like mess of vomit and just the things are happening here, there, everywhere. They did not plan that well at all, if they planned it at all. But for Mad Max Fury Road, like, I would honestly believe that every single shot in that film was storyboarded, cars and all.
I don't deny the quality. I don't deny that it was done well. It's just, I'm sorry, buddy. I just can't. I just don't feel it. It doesn't hit. Doesn't hit. I don't know what to tell you.
Tell me why.
I had trouble the whole time. You know, I'm sitting there. I'm in the theater. I went and saw this on film,
which is shocking. I'm even more shocked that you didn't like it after seeing it on the big screen.
And that's it. And like the feeling afterwards, I didn't feel it. It didn't feel that big the whole time. It didn't hit just the right way. You know, I am definitely a little different than you when it comes to sort of the kind of films that I like, the kind of films that you like. What I like in action films that I do like is less scale. Let me put it this way. I love Jackie Chan movies, okay? Love Police Story. Police Story is one of my favorite films. And I think that you could say that the levels of action per minute or just in general is almost comparable. Maybe a little bit more in Mad Max Fury Road. But in Jackie Chan films, to me, the action always feels very human. And in Mad Max Fury Road, it feels just part of this chaos. Which again, I think that you like. I think that's done well. It's just, for a viewer like me, does not move me. It doesn't have the same impact.
But with, like, Police Story, whenever we've talked about it, we talk about the intro sequence, where they drive two cars. It's almost, like, poetic that you chose Police Story, because they're driving cars. They drive it...
They do be driving cars.
Down a whole, like, cliffside, through so many houses. That kind of scale is like more impressive when it comes to action, because it is much harder to control on a set. I think that's what's so commendable about Fury Road, is that how the fuck do you even put any of that together? And that's like, with the original Mad Max, I get that to an extent, but also the film is very slow and boring. No, so I'm sorry, George.
And to come in on that, I think why I'm struggling to find the words here with this is the action. It's not totally me, but it isn't bad. I totally agree that it's good action in its own way, even if it doesn't work for me. The non-action parts of this film, that's where the George Miller of it all kind of comes out. I don't think, like, none of the characters really interest me. None of the plot points feel really fleshed out. Like, when they get out to where Furiosa was going, that whole sequence there where they like where they start to brave the flats, but then move back. Like, it just felt like a mess. It really did.
I do want to bring up the infamous Chandler Fury Road review.
Oh God.
In which you said, I'm just going to quote it in full here. I'm going to ask you to back up the end of it. But a 2012 AAA butt rock video game of a movie, parentheses, with comparable amounts of dust and cheesy effects.
Yeah.
I want to hear your defense of this. I want to hear, who the fuck are you, buddy? Okay? Cheesy effects. Come on, then.
The effects were gross, dude.
They were gross. What the fuck do you mean they were gross? Do you remember the film?
Of course I do. And it's the effects, and that, as in, like, what the effects are put on are good. It's just they add these gross effects, especially when, like, Max remembers, he gets those visions of his kid, or like any of his visions or dreams, and it just looks like it was processed with like a really shitty PS3.
I think it looks fine. I think it was a little before its time. It's a very short clip because he's remembering everyone that's died before him, and I think just flashing it up a little bit, it's genuinely, it's like a composite. It's not even like a notable effect. I'm shocked that that's stuck in your head so much, I guess. It did. Not even the like car crash. You didn't even bring that up. You went for the small flashes of a child. I can get the car crash. I will defend the car crash because I think bad effects don't break a movie, and I think you don't want to fucking crash a car with Tom Hardy strapped to the front of it. That's where you and I would love to strap Tom Hardy to a burning rolling car and drive it into a sandstorm. Tom Hardy's good in this film. I've just in the same way that he would play a really good plank of wood. That's what I was gonna go into, because that's the thing with Mad Max. Is he really that mad? He's just kind of stoic. I like his performance, but it doesn't give mad, it gives tired. Yeah, he's definitely tired Max by this point. What kind of mad is he supposed to be? Is he mad as in insane, or mad as in angry? I think sort of like in an Australian way. Oh, that bloke's mad. Like, just sort of take that as you will. That doesn't answer my question, but I thank you for trying. To defend my review again real quickly, to bring up the butt rock of it all, that is another part stylistically which bleeds into the effects, bleeds into the story, bleeds into the where I say it's a video game sort of thing of it all. You've played the Mad Max video game. I finished it not long ago. It is an excellent game. I hate it, but it's excellent. The thing about games, especially at this time, collectathons, like little things that add time to it, little collectibles, little outposts. Were there collectibles in Fury Road? Where are you going with this? He collects water. And gasoline. I guess he needs to. He's in an apocalypse. But what I mean is that, like, it just reeks
of like how the video games are from this time, you know, like all open world sort of video games, which have their merits that I like. But I mean, you know that I like Sleeping Dogs. It's like my favorite game. But I recognize that it is, you know, I call them tin can shooters, where the shooting is sort of a second-hand thought. There's running, platforming, you know, cover, fighting, driving. They put a lot into it. And to pad out the fact that it doesn't actually have much of a story or much going to it, they pad it out with, you know, side missions, collectibles, things like that. And that's where it comes down to me with Mad Max, where it's like, definitely has the visuals, definitely has sort of the vision, but it doesn't have much of, you know, the mechanics, the basics to back it up. And so it sort of drags out for me.
What would you consider to be the basics of an action film?
I think that you don't need, you know, the plot to end all plots. You don't need the deepest, you know, connections here, but just a little bit more than what we got. You know, I think that Furiosa and her crew, the woman that she escapes with, are like good in concept, and that's a really cool idea, but the movie sort of expects you to get them and empathize with them. So even if you know nothing about them, if they die, when they die, there are some of them that do die, you know, you have sort of a connection to them. But I did not get the same reaction when some of them died that I have with other action films, because I just didn't have the connection there. I didn't have anything to really go off of other than them just kind of being basic plot pawns for the story.
I want to know what your definition of butt rock is, because it is a term that I come across like maybe 3 times a year, and every time it has a different definition.
This movie was a 9 Inch Nail music video. I need to be controversial here. This is the first thing that people are going to get of me.
You're just gonna stop being controversial.
I need them to have this moment to point back to show that I'm the heel of this podcast.
It's going to switch at some point, as soon as we bring up anything.
As any good wrestling storyline goes, I will have my redemption.
The minute we bring up a very critically acclaimed movie and I say the phrase "not as good as horror," it's just gonna happen.
Just you wait. I'm sorry that I don't have. I just like, I really wanted to talk about this film because of the road trip theme of this all. I think it was funny.
At this point, we've crashed the car into a ditch, so...
Much like Tom Hardy, we are currently covered in gasoline and being tied to the back of a car because I just don't think... I want you to say some more good things that you like about it, because it's one of those situations where it's like, you know, you're asking me to talk about something I don't like, so of course I'm just gonna look like an absolute asshole here. You, on the other hand... I
don't think you look like an asshole, though. I wanted to talk to you about this because I genuinely never come across people who don't like Fury Road. I think maybe you're the chosen one. Maybe you can shake up the game.
Yeah, because even, like, film bros or, like, less bro, like film adjacent people, like people who are more cinematic than the average bunch.
People from my dad to, like, Martin Scorsese. That's the spectrum. And
yeah.
All of them like Fury Road. And here you are, like, beyond Scorsese, apparently.
I am the Messiah. I am the second coming.
I would really like to know what the ideal Chandler action movie has in it. If you were to make one, what would you have in your action movie?
That isn't in Fury Road?
That isn't in Fury Road.
I would have 3 gangsters, a kind of shy dude, and just some antics. Going to the arcade, going to the supermarket, you know, pushing some people.
Hanging out on the beach.
Yeah. Stealing cars.
I was half expecting you to say Stone Cold.
Ooh, Stone Cold.
Stone Cold. So that's our review for Stone Cold. So, Chandler, is this film right or wrong?
Joel, I'm gonna have to give this a wrong.
Oh, fuck. I don't know why I'm shocked. I expected this. We just had a whole discussion about it, but...
I just, arrow straight through your chest there. I think that, it just fails as an action film, not because of the action, not because of the visuals, but because it just is a big airbag covered with dirt and dust and grime. And I feel like I would see this as background video at a Nickelback concert.
You cannot see my face right now. I am flabbergasted. This film is 100% right. This film is... I mean, as I said in my intro, I genuinely think that action movies should have taken more from this film than they did from John Wick, because this is fun, it is energetic, and it's been talked about to death. So I'm sorry.
I'm gonna rip your thyroid out with my bare teeth.
I don't know if that one's staying in.
So that's it. Episode 1. Moments of fancy, moments of light and beauty, and also moments of deep despair.
Just like an average highway drive, Sometimes you look to the left and see a field of sheep. You look to the right and you see a horrific car accident.
We had our squabbles, but I'm gonna put the radio on now. We're gonna relax, and we'll see you at the next rest stop.
Alright, I'm stopping the fucking
And
record.
kill.